Focusing on this, it's got to do with aviation, the airfares, the international airlines. Remember, some time ago, there's a spat between BA, Arik, Nigeria, well, a different one of sort, perhaps all connected, that pops up again. And this time, a 30-day ultimatum has been handed down to some of these international airlines to regularize international airfares or face perhaps a ban. Well, that's the focus here this morning. I was joined by Mr. Chris Aligbe, who is an aviation analyst. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
Well, interestingly, we see in the papers that the President has endorsed action against BA, Virgin Atlantic, others, even in the midst of some of the headlines wherein Britain says they will also take commensurate action if and when this does happen. But you're in this sector. How do you read all this?
Thank you. It's unfortunate that we are faced with this situation. From my own perspective, what the minister has done is she has voiced out the frustration of Nigerians. Nigerians are frustrated on this fares issue. I'm not looking at the ultimatum or whatever. That ultimatum is just a kind of an action that you see is the end point of this frustration. That look, we've been talking about this has not happened. In any case, it's not just BA and Virgin. It's across the European airlines. Look at all of them, it's the same thing. But maybe because of the volume of passengers leaving Nigeria for UK, that's why every time people are talking about Virgin and BA, all of them, we took a critical look at all of them, and we checked the affairs. We checked here, we checked Ghana, we checked what's happening in Kenya, we checked what's happening in South Africa. Nigeria's case is different. Okay, and so we are frustrated as Nigerians on this issue. And I'll tell you, many people don't know the import of this. Over almost 80% of those who fly business and first class don't pay the fares by themselves. Is it that government is paying or companies are paying? So it's a loss to our economy. And so when you look at it from that point, there's very few individuals, but not up to 20%, no more than 20% of those who pay from their pocket, from the money they earn. All of that, either government pays or companies pay. And when they pay, it is discounted in terms of taxation. So, any which way, the economy is losing. Even if you look at the quantum, it's capital flight. So, when you look at it, so the ramifications are wide.
But having worked in the airline industry before, defunct Nigerian Airways, can you give us an insight into how prices are arrived at?
Look, you have IATA. IATA is there, an apex body giving you a guideline. IATA does not fix prices. It gives a guideline, and then what really impacts on the final rise? One, the competition. If there's enough competition, they will battle for the market. Critically, if there's a major carriers, flag carriers, national carriers, flag carriers from a country, they impact on the fares. That's why you can't find this situation happening in South Africa. South African Airways will depress the fares, we put it where it should be. You can't find it happening in Kenya. You can't find it happening in Egypt.
Or
Ethiopia.
So why is it happening in Nigeria?
You are trying to control. We are trying to control the prices of products we don't have. If you don't have a product, you can't control the price. And critically, Nigeria is a market in captivity. People must travel. Now you cannot challenge, you cannot put something, you don't have a product, you don't have your own product to compete in the market. So the foreign airlines we are in captivity.
So when they say, because one of the statements which is quoted everywhere, they say this is a sound business plan. They're invariably telling us, well, go get yours.
No, they said it. They're not just inferring it. They have put it in writing. They put it in, one of them says, why are Nigerians? They are not complaining. Those who are complaining for first class and business class passengers, after all they have a RIC. Why are they not flying a RIC? They put it in writing. They are telling us clearly that you just keep quiet. You don't have the product. They know we are frustrated, but they know Nigeria is a huge market in captivity. There's no competition. All the European airlines, what we are facing is European oligopoly. Oligopolies are supposed to be competitive, but this is a cooperative oligopoly. In a country where you have a regulation, economic regulation, to the point where you have antitrust policies, these things will not happen.
Because the question Mark asked really is the question most Nigerians are looking towards getting an answer to, or the kind of yardstick or the kind of rationale behind this airfare pricing or fixing. But again, if you have tied this now to our ownership rather of our own national carrier. But initially we thought that at least we have a carrier owned by a Nigerian that should actually have helped save the situation, because the last time we had the landing slots issue, you were right here in our studios again, that was last year, and we felt that that should also serve as what they call a national carrier. So the debate of a national carrier has always come and back and forth, and some say it must not necessarily be owned by the government of the day. So maybe you space it more when you talk about national carrier. How do you mean?
Yeah, I agree with those people, because what is that? The albatross of Nigeria is everywhere, hanging on everybody's neck. So once you talk of national carrier, what gets into people's head is Nigeria Airways again. That's not the concept anymore. A flag carrier, national flag carrier, is a carrier that government doesn't need to own more than 5% for the purposes of emergency, national emergency, or to intervene in it in case there's anything. But it must be a carrier that is driven completely by the private sector. British Airways is a British national carrier, but it's owned by the British people. It's different. The status of British Airways in UK is different from the status of Virgin Atlantic. It's clear who owns Virgin Atlantic, but the other one is owned by the British people. It's a British flag carrier. Any time, any day, try and touch British Airways, the British government will roll out all sanctions that they can to make sure that nothing happens. It's an investment of the British people. They see it as being owned by Britain. That is the concept of a national carrier we are talking about. American Airlines, go to them. None of them is owned by American government. But you don't touch any one of them. Even during the 9/11, after 9/11, you can see the kind of investment, the kind of money they gave back to them in order to make sure that they will come back into operation. They are totally protected. So that's the kind of national carrier we are talking about. Nobody is talking about. I won't support the old concept of Nigeria Airways. I won't support it.
Doesn't that put us in a kind of difficult position, for want of words, to say, okay, if they refuse to do that, can we afford to ban that airline? Because they are citing the bilateral agreement, saying that would be contrary to the spirit and the letter of that agreement if we go the way we intend to do.
It is good that they are citing it. I must say they are correct in citing the bilateral service agreement, because when we had the other problems before, we cited it. So they are correct in citing it. That's the first thing. But we shouldn't go to the point of threats here and there. All that I'm saying is that they themselves, because this thing had been discussed before, last year, if you remember, and they say, give us time, we are studying it, we'll be able to come back. And I think the government feels that they are taking too long a time to study it. So what government is saying, I think, is that, look, by this time, of the next 1 month, you shall be able to come out with the results of your study and tell us that this is why you are charging what you're charging, so that if there's any area we have to intervene to make sure that this comes down, then it comes down. It's just for us to realize this thing. It's not a question of that, well, okay, by then we ban or whatever. Talking about it's question of saying, you've been saying we are doing this, we are carrying out a study on this. When is it an unending study?
Okay, but
are you using it for a delay?
By
Let us know. Yes.
Can one suggest or pick, because some say they pick up by innuendo, if officials of BA or the commission are saying, look, if the people are ready to pay, why should government complain? So if those kind of comments are actually coming from them, could that be saying that, well, we don't intend shifting grant on this matter, even though we say we're studying it?
Yeah, it is possible that that's what they are looking at. But I don't think they are all foolhardy. But it's a question of when these issues come down, they want to put all the cards on the table. Why are you complaining? People are paying. And who are the people paying? Government is paying. You understand? But government that is paying is now complaining because government knows what is losing.
So that's legitimate.
Yes. That's it. So government complaint is legitimate. There's no doubt. Like I say,
you don't think it's also selfish? It's because they are feeling it. That's why they're complaining. If the ordinary Nigerian were to be the one bearing all of this, do you think that they would have taken it up the way they're doing now?
I think that we're at a point where even ordinary Nigerians, when they start feeling something, they complain. We are beginning to wake up gradually. It may not be with the kind of the level of impact that people will want, but we're beginning to complain, to voice out. If you look at on channel television, on TV stations, people are beginning, on the newspapers, are beginning to speak out, and sometimes the National Assembly, they are beginning to react, whether truly, genuinely, or in reaction, in response to what people are saying. But Nigerians are beginning to complain. So we take this. Yes, they are feeling it, but remember that it's hurting our economy, no matter what it is. Like I have told you, if you check central bank records, you can see the capital flight from the industry. It's horrendous. Yeah. Horrendous. Even only on fares is about $600 million annually, only on fares. When you look at them. When you look at manpower, if you know the number of foreign manpower in the aviation sector today, so we are losing out in so many things. I think that all boils down to they telling us, get your acts together. That's what they're telling. That's why those who oppose, who talk about national carrier and whatever, I know if it is not for government to own it, but it is for us to drive it. People say, okay, private individuals. How many?
What kind of national carrier are we talking about? Carrier. Because, when we talk about a flag carrier or national carrier, what kind are we talking about? If you say it's quite different from the Nigeria Airways days.
Nigeria Airways was owned 100% by government. No government should attempt that anymore. All I say, government should own 5%, because in times of national emergency, government should be able to invoke that. It's called grandfather rights. Okay, government will no longer with that. Government cannot run the airline. We don't have anything to do with that. Before in Nigeria Airways, no MD can post a staff, take a staff and send to somewhere. Before you say it, somebody will call you from Abuja and say, that staff you are moving from that place, I want him to stay there. That's how it goes. So the MDs were there, but we had the outside managers. It was run by outside managers, while those who are sitting in there were not the actual managers. When a CEO cannot move a level 8 officer, a level 9 officer from one position to the other because he thinks he's not doing well there, and somebody calls you from Abuja and say, that man you want to move there, leave him there. So you can know what are they saying. People don't know. That's one of the reasons why the place collapsed and that kind of a thing. It's not corruption, it's all this kind of remote management.
Okay. One of the reasons I had asked about, how airlines arrive at their airfares is because it seems it's not only Nigeria that experiences this airfare disparity in terms of looking at the region. But if you go to, say, the Americas, for instance, they also seem to have that same problem. If you go online now, for instance, you will see that they had problems, say, between Mexico, even between flying within countries in the States is always a problem as well, compared with, say, prices in Europe. So I was wondering if that had anything to do with, maybe how they arrive at their airfares, or the environment had anything to do with arriving at airfares in Nigeria.
Obviously, they will plead environment, business environment. If you ask the airlines today, they will plead business environment. Like most other people, we plead business environment in fixing their prices.
Can we say something a little about the business environment? Because I mean, this peculiar business environment is becoming a scapegoat of some sort.
I agree. The first thing they will tell you is power. They generate their own power. How much they generate in terms of their own power, they will never tell you. But all of us in this country know that power is a problem. That's why probably government is having a major focus to fix the power situation. Okay, they will give you that. They will tell you about other administrative, bureaucratic processes you have to pass, the cost of doing business in the country. Obviously, we know that the cost of doing business in our country is higher, usually higher than the normal. Government has said it. All of us is something that we don't want we are not waiting for anybody to tell us. But what is the cost of that vis-a-vis what you are charging? So it's like you say, that scapegoating. A lot of people will scapegoat. But the major thing is that the competition. You see, the North Atlantic route, you can get anything. You can pay $150 or $200 going from UK to New York and back.
Sorry, what about now you talked about this currency now, the dollars now.
Yes.
What about the exchange rate? Doesn't this also affect what we pay when we compare it to other African countries?
No.
Knowing full well
the
strength of the naira compared to some, maybe the rand and some other currencies.
No, if you look at the Feds, they're always quoted in dollars everywhere. Whether in Ghana, whether in Kenya, whether they are quoted in dollars. So you just convert it. So we are not looking at naira comparison, naira vis-a-vis kwacha or vis-a-vis CD comparison. We are looking at dollar per dollar.
Are we also looking at the distance?
The distance, yes. We looked at the distances in checking. Before ever you say, you check the distance. Visually, you check from Lagos to London or from Accra to London. Now, virtually the same distance. Abuja to London, you check. When we checked from Kenya, we look at the cost per mile, per nautical mile, when these things are fixed up. And I say, you wonder what is happening in Ghana, why the disparity is there. One, we have a huge market, but it's a market in captivity. There, they don't have that kind of huge market, but the government of Ghana has intervened in this issue, trying to bring down, give them perks that we make them, okay, with this, take off this, we can bring the cost, the price down.
So
you can ask, why are we not doing that? It's a major question to ask, but instead of doing that, I tell you this, instead of doing that, what we should do is to join the competition, because we have to make money. To do that, we will lose more money.
That'll be a bigger step.
Yes, we do. Yes, the one we should do is join the competition. That's why I think this country needs about three major carriers on the international routes, not just one. 3 major carriers on the international routes. One prays that ARIC can get its acts completely together and become a formidable operator. It should be joined by 2 other operators. When we get to that point, we will give them the challenge they want.
Well, Mark, but speaking from an insular perspective, how long does it take for us to get our acts together? For instance, if we're talking about the money involved, if we say, okay, this is a 30-period grace given to the international airlines to, take off this disparity and let there be parity, else this. Can we, in that same 30 days, float our own carriers, if at all one?
No, you can't float in 30 days. You can't even float in 6 months. You can't even float in 6 months. You would have done a lot of groundwork to be able to float in 1 year. You would have done a lot of groundwork. And I am sure, I'm not privy to what the ministry is doing, but I think that if the minister and the ministry have started talking about it, I guess they have started doing some groundwork. Because I just saw the other day in the papers, so many airports going under construction. Nobody's been talking about remodeling airports, upgradation, but we didn't know what it is. But by the time you looked at it, so many, about 11 of them or whatever, and work is going on. This just didn't start today. It means some groundwork has been done. So if I think the ministry and the minister they have seen that something has to be done, and I think they are doing that groundwork. It's not lost on them that the major what will solve this problem is we joining in the competition and providing competition for these airlines. Then we'll be able to price, we'll be able to give some protection to our own airlines. All of them go to France, go to whatever. The government gives them, yes, they give them that kind of protection, give them some leverage. Yes, America does it, and so that impacts on the fares they charge, on their cost of operation. When that happens, there's no reason a new airline coming, you consider it as an infant from the infant industry perspective, and say, okay, you have a 5 years tax relief. You have this, you have this. When you do that, it immediately impacts on the cost of operation, and they can look at their fares.
You know, considering all that you've mentioned now as to why our airfares are still high, I'm wondering if we have a right to complain. I mean, if we the people complain, does our government have the right to make as much noise with us when we haven't exactly put the right things in order?
Well, government is a continuum when you look at it. But the government that created this problem was a government of yesteryears, not a government of today. The government of today has inherited the problem created by government of yesteryears, and they are now complaining. But what I are saying is that if you are complaining, what are you doing to resolve it? And I think that what's being done, that's why I say the proposal on a new flag carrier, whether you call it national carrier or Nigerian flag carrier, is a step in the right direction, because it's meant to ultimately address the issues. This voicing out the frustration of Nigerians, no matter what, these people will sit down. Don't mind about threats and counter threats. They will sit down and say, look, we don't want to get to this point. Yes, it's business here. We don't want to get to this point. Somebody can be mad. If not that I like the military regimes. If the military guys were there, quick, they will react, because they know that people can sleep. One day, wake up, and by the next morning they say, this thing is over.
But this time around, the British Prime Minister has already responded. He said that if we try to, stifle the operations here, they would also retaliate with our own airline.
Yeah, they will. The fact of the matter is that you ask yourself, will they be able to retaliate equally with our own airline? Do we have that kind? There's no balance of service in terms of that. So that is why we won't get to that point. They won't get to that point, because 21 flights. 7 flights a day, 21 flights a day, 7 flights, and the number of passengers and this thing, all that are telling you, if you do that, you will hurt major British interests. That's what they have told us. They will not stay on the airline. Not make the mistake. They will go to other areas where they know they can hurt Nigeria's interest, because the two operators, British Airways and this thing, they are major British interests. But we are talking only about British Airways and whatever. What about Lufthansa? What about Air France? They are all in this cooperative oligopoly.
So maybe the ministry should also look wider.
No, the ministry didn't restrict it to BA and Virgin.
So including the European airlines.
Yes, it's European airlines. If you look at their fares, it's the same. There's no difference. Look at Lufthansa fare on first class or business class. Look at Air France. Look at BA. Look at this thing. About the same.
Do they refuel in Nigeria?
Yes, they do.
Aviation fuel.
I tell you what happens. Economies of scale. You know what happens. That's why the airlines here are suffering multiple jeopardies. Because of their large size, they negotiate with the headquarters of Mobil, headquarters of Total, on what British Airways will pay on all their fleets worldwide, wherever they go. Whether it's Indonesia, whether it's this thing, they have negotiated it from the headquarters because of their large size. But here, we don't do that. We buy as it is here. But if we were large, that won't happen. And other airlines in Africa, they have plugged into various alliances: Star Alliance, South African Airways, Ethiopian Airlines, Egypt. So they are members of this alliance. And what you take from being the membership of these alliances is that insurance is reduced. You pay little for insurance, fuel. There are many common services that you plug into, and then you benefit from it. That impacts on your cost of operation. That we have not achieved in this country because we don't have the airline. We are not part of any alliance. Look, sooner than later, we will be flushed out, even by African airlines, because they are pushing now for Yamoussoukro. Yamoussoukro will let them fly into any point in Nigeria. That's what we have signed in Africa. It's like it's an African open skies.
And we don't seem to be ready for that agreement.
This is that's the issue. That's why all of us should wake up. That's why we should look critically, keep following critically the aviation ministry and the aviation minister in the programs they are bringing out, and see, yes, is this going to drive us to the point where we will come to that point that we can compete? Honestly speaking, in Africa, Nigeria should be the number one pushing Yamoussoukro.
You know, I was going to ask you, assuming today that we did come up with a national carrier, do you think that Nigerians will fly their national carrier?
Yes, certainly.
You believe that we will, not just because the prices will be low, but also because the services will be
good,
excellent?
Yes, services will be excellent. The kind of national carrier, you must get a technical partner. A technical partner that should be an airline of note. That's the starting point. You get that technical partner. If today you learn that your technical partner is something like Qantas or Singapore Airlines or whatever, they are coming in here with the equity there and are helping to set up the airline, they are going to give you that standard that you look towards to. Nigeria had hoped that when Branson was coming, that this will happen. They had hoped that it will happen. But they didn't understand that he had a different idea of what he was setting up. He was setting up just a feeder and distributor airline. He was not going to set up a competition against itself. Okay, Nigerians were ready. Oh, Branson is coming, Virgin Atlantic, they want to enjoy that kind of this thing. But those who flew Virgin Nigeria and flew Virgin Atlantic to London will tell you how sorry Virgin Nigeria was. Yet it was run by the same management that has attained very high standard globally in terms of airline services and airline management. So if you get a neutral person, somebody who is not already involved in the Nigerian market, an airline to come, that's why I say we should look east. We should look east and further there to get an airline partner, a technical partner that will help set up airline for us.
You know, this is also important. If you look at the Fly Nigeria bill that's already being proposed, I mean, one will wonder what the relevance of it will be in that at that particular point in time. Or what exactly its relevance is now for you?
I call it a dream. I call it a dream.
A good dream.
A dream for the future, not for today.
So
it's coming. It's coming. Maybe, if I'm fair, to be, gratuitous 5 years earlier than it should come, to be gratuitous. Otherwise, this is a bill that you'll be looking at maybe in the next 6-7 years that should be, because then you would have had airlines. If we can go setting up this thing, you would have them there, and it will be good to.
So you don't think it's fair now that bill is coming at this particular point in time? The bill is supposed to make government officials fly Nigerian airlines. Which
Nigerian airline? So to say, we have only Arik. Well, Arik for now is a point-to-point operator. He flies, he lives here, he goes to UK, he comes back. Over 60% of those going into UK are going beyond UK. So if you're a point-to-point flyer, there's not much. And many Nigerians say people go to UK, but people are going beyond, they're going to various places. So which Nigerian airline are you now talking about? Ari goes to US, he goes to New York. Okay, fine, if you go into New York, you can move beyond that. Arik has joined IATA. All that Arik has to do is to activate its IATA membership, because that will open up the market more for it. So far, for now, it has not done it. That's why I say we hope eventually that Arik will maximize the opportunities before it now to put itself that way. If it does, Fly Nigeria Act will eventually benefit Arik once it starts offering services that are comparable.
Well, it's the 28th, and the ultimatum actually started on the 26th. So in a couple of days, what do you hope to see between Nigeria and these airlines?
Further negotiations.
And if they don't reach a compromise or an agreement?
Conditionals. I always like to run away from conditionals. I leave it to the economists because they know how to run away for it. They tell you ceteris paribus. They know that all things will never be equal. They say if all things being equal, they are never equal. So I run away from conditionals. I rather will want to see when we get to that point, I'll see what will happen. But I know it will not go to the point of everything cracking down. Everybody is interested. The airlines, they have a captive market here. They are interested in continuing the business. They have projected this as part of their earning. Nigerians will travel. Whatever you do, whatever you want to do, they will travel. In fact, there's a point you get to, Nigerians will start shouting, don't do this, we can't travel again. Nigerians will be the first persons to start shouting. That's why they know our psychology. That's why they say, Nigerians are not complaining. Why are you complaining for them?
Perhaps it's time for our government to just shock them and then let's do something differently. Put in place some policies here so that you take advantage of this market. 160 million plus, that's huge.
There are things that the government can do beyond this. There are other things. Government is not foolish, but government has just voiced out its frustration and the frustration of Nigerians. But government they have so many things, the other things to do that can make it a little bit uncomfortable. So if you're exploiting us to this point, and you do not think that you have something to give back to us, okay, we will not give this. They take out this, take out this, take out this. It will hurt the airlines. But I don't think all of us need it. The airlines don't need it. Nigerians don't need it. So I think there will be a rapprochement. They will come to the table. They will discuss. I think things will be sorted out. But they now know that we feel extremely uncomfortable with the fares they are giving us, the way they are treating us in this market. And also we know that they are telling us, put your acts together. And so, two-pronged approach. While we are doing this, I think we should drive the ministry and government to try and put in place a sensible airline operation, help the ones that are there, and then bring into place sensible airline operation so that at least we can join the competition. It's overdue.
Okay, then I was going to talk about Kosovo when you say looking east, but
the Imo State government just recently signed an agreement with Kosovo, and they hope to be making Imo State Airlines.
Imo State Airlines.
Yes, in partnership with the business community from Kosovo.
Yes. Who from our own side? Is it government or
the Imo State government?
Imo State government.
Is that the east you were talking about?
No. I'm sorry. I'm talking at east of the world. Okay. Please. I'm looking at Asiatic Airlines or whatever. I'm looking at far. Look, today Australia is ready to move out. For a long time, it had enclosed itself in terms of business, but he now wants to go out. And they have one of the best airlines globally, Qantas. You can talk to them. Go out there, because European airlines will never ever help